Hello listeners, this video discusses The American Scholar written by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson was born in the year 1803 and died in the year 1882. He was an American essayist, lecturer, philosopher, and abolitionist. Abolitionist meaning a person who supports the movement to end slavery. He is also one of the famous poets in the movement transcendentalism. Transcendentalism is a philosophical movement which developed during 1820s to 1830s in the region United States in New England. This transcendentalism advocates the idea of personal knowledge of God, and they believe that no intermediary was needed for spiritual insight. And similarly, men and women equally have knowledge about themselves and the world around them, and they believe that nothing goes beyond what they see, hear, or taste or feel. Friedrich Nietzsche is one of German philosopher and a writer, also a cultural critic. He considers Ralph Waldo Emerson as the most gifted of the Americans. Walt Whitman, who's an American poet and essayist, he referred Emerson as master. Let us see the important essays written by Emerson. Essays, first series in the year 1841. Essays, second series in the year 1844. Emerson is known popularly for his well-known essays such as Self-Reliance, The Oversoul, Circles, The Poet, and Experience. Emerson spoke about the subjects of individuality, freedom, and ability that mankind can realize almost anything. He also talks about the relationship between the soul and the surrounding world. Let us see a picture about this essay, The American Scholar. This was a speech given by Emerson on August 31, 1837 to the Pi Beta Kappa Society, which is an oldest academic society in the United States, and it is most prestigious. This society, Pi Beta Kappa, aims to promote and advocate excellence in the liberal arts and sciences. This society is in Harvard College at the First Parish in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He was invited to talk about his work, Nature. Nature is a lengthy essay written by Emerson. It is an essay that put forth the foundation of transcendentalism and a belief system that exposes a non-traditional appreciation of nature. So he is invited to talk about his successful work, Nature, which was published in the earlier year. In his speech, he talks about the 60 years after independence, where American culture was highly influenced by Europe. Emerson, giving this lecture, he possibly for the first time talks about the country's history. He provided a visionary philosophical framework and distinctively talks about American cultural identity. He introduces transcendentalism and romantic views to explain an American scholar's relationship with nature. So there are some key points he adds in his speech. Those are, he says that Americans are fragmented as the hand is divided into fingers. He pictures American culture as a great creature who is a mankind. He thus says an individual lives in two states. One is a busy, that refers to divided or degenerate state, where he does not possess himself but identifies with his occupation or his actions. In the second state, it is called as right state, where he elevates to man, who is one among the mankind. Thirdly, he says, in order to receive a high state of mind, The modern American scholar must reject all the old ideas and think about to become man thinking rather than a mere thinker or just a host of other men's thinking or being a victim of a society. Fourthly, he says that the American scholar has to have obligation as man thinking within one concept in order to see the world clearly, in order to severely get influenced by the traditional and historical views. The American scholar must also understand the world from his fresh eyes in order to differ never to the popular cry. Next, he says that the scholar's education must have three influences. Number one is nature, which is the most important influence on the mind. Second is the past, meaning where he can attain knowledge from the books. Third is action and its relation to experience. Lastly, Emerson says that unnumbered part of the text is devoted to Emerson views on the duties of an American scholar who has to become the man thinking. He then says that the scholar has to be admired when he is addressing the great spectacle. He must settle its value in his own mind. Let us see the summary of the speech. He begins his speech by addressing the audience, saying that it is a friendly sign of the survival of the love of letters. He says that he is appreciator to produce more good works. He thus says that this speech, titled The American Scholar, is a collective term for representing post-revolutionary war college students who are capable, according to Emerson, where they can break away the European influences and they can pioneer the forms of art and philosophies that are unique. He thus says this American scholar may produce several poetry and other works that will lead in an artistic revolution and a new age for American society. He thus says that anything that is divided prior to this speech is never going to be subdivided, but hopefully it is all going to unite. He then affirms that this work is going to remain a reminder for individual men and women to be fundamentally united by certain ideas. And the scholar's role is to reveal these unifying truths. He then points out three main influences over the scholar's development. The first is in time and in importance. This phrase he refers to nature. He then says that a boy or a girl who began to study nature, he or she is influenced by it as they are surrounded by nature. Eventually, the classification that they observe from nature will lead to connections between objects by unifying instinct. Ultimately, the scholar is going to find what they see from nature. So they are going to proceed from one route. And by studying nature, a young scholar will find that they begin to know and understand themselves by the extension of mankind. Secondly, he says that the scholar will be influenced by the mind of the past, meaning he gains knowledge from the books that he reads. He says the reason for writing the books by the past scholars are because they wanted to share their own interpretation to the world and the society to the next generation. That is the present generation that Emerson is referring to. Emerson says that however the society changes, new books need to be written for every generation, and that is the job of every scholar. and it is a scholar's duty to learn how to think for themselves and to create new books instead of simply writing on the great books that they have studied in college libraries. He then says, if a scholar is greatly influenced by the books that he read, then there is a risk of becoming a satellite instead of a system where he loses himself to achieve true greatness. On the other hand, if the reader, that is a scholar, reads and interprets the books correctly, then it can help him to unite readers by revealing some of the truths that bind all mankind together. Thirdly, Emerson points out to the influence over action. He criticizes the popular idea that scholars cannot do anything practical as they are too busy thinking and writing. Emerson asserts that living and taking an active role in the society's work will make the scholar to produce better academic work. He believes that action can lead to thought, where he refers ebb and flow of the sea. He then says that experiences of working and action may lead to new thoughts and also introduces new vocabularies to the scholar. He then says that understanding many languages, he refers as the field and the workyard, understanding many languages, that is upper class languages, can help the scholar to convey their ideas in a language that they can relate to and understand. He then says a scholar has a greater responsibility in society. He says that in order to live a life of man thinking, the scholar must pursue both the unity of the society and cultivation of their own individuality. He then says, unfortunately, sometimes some scholars get alienated from the same society and they disconnect and lose their potential. However, if the scholar is potential and content with his own knowledge, then they are exercising the highest functions of human nature. Emerson then warns the audiences, saying, as scholars, they can easily get caught in the fashion and controversies of the moment. He then says that any American scholar has an opportunity to understand and define the world that they live in. He states as, not he is great who can alter matter, but he who can alter my state of mind. Emerson then talks about the popularity of books. He finds some positive revolution from the books that focuses on neglected classes. He refers those books as literature of the poor, the feelings of the child, the philosophy of the street, the meaning of household life. From these statements, it is believed that Emerson gives a unique insight into the true state of society that includes the past and future due to the universality of some of the truths that books portray. Finally, Emerson sees the new importance given to the single person as another sign of the readiness of American society for artistic revolution. He thus says that scholars has to take responsibility of uniting their society, and by creating works they have to unite the country that is distinctively America, and that reflects the reality and the truth of being part of United States in the 19th century. By focusing on creating a distinctively American society, they can stop the continuation of European tradition that had no relevance in a country like United States. By doing this, the scholar not only earns the nation's respect, but also he paves a way for future American scholars who may tend to get discouraged by the negative attitudes toward speculative individuals. He ends his speech by saying that the works produced by the American scholars may truly unite nation by showing each individual that they are connected by a divine soul which also inspires all men. Let us see the themes that Emerson used in this speech. He first addresses social unity, where he encourages the young scholars the importance of large whole society and mentions the specific function in society to facilitate unity. In this theme, he says that no matter what education a person gets, it is an equal role that all scholars must take to create and maintain a successful society. Then he addresses on the topic nature and connection. Here he emphasizes that nature has a great influence on the scholar's development. He thus says that a man who studies about nature is going to learn a lot about nature and about humankind. Then he addresses on the theme creation and national identity. Here he refers the independence and the devoted energies of the functioning system of their government and the independent system for over 50 years. He thus says that the scholars must take their time to focus on forming an American identity by removing the European influences. The artists must create their own original literary and artistic identity by separating the traditional European dominant culture. Hope this video helps. If you have query, please write it down. Thank you for listening.